am the proprietor of the Underworld Pawn Shop. We specialize in the things the living are most willing to sell, the things they believe are worthless, like morality, conscience, and family ties. After all, when you weigh a conscience, even ghosts find it too light. The couple that came in today wanted to trade their daughter's lifespan for their son's admission to a good university. I gave them two choices: sell their son's life, or sell their daughter's love for them. They chose the second option. See? They didn't even haggle. The shop's bell rang while I was inspecting a pearl with a pair of silver tweezers. A middle-aged couple walked in. The man was hunched over, wringing his hands, while the woman's eyes were glued to the gold artifacts on the curio shelves. We want to pawn something. The man slapped his son's report card on the counter. A 58 in math. I glanced at it. This shop doesn't accept trash. The woman rushed to a glass display case. My daughter. We'll sell our daughter's remaining years. Finally, we get to the point. I set down the pearl and tapped my fingertips on the book of life and death. Ava, 16 years old, with 62 years of life left. How much are you looking to trade? All of it. The man blurted out, then quickly corrected himself. No, just enough to get our son into college. I flipped open my ledger. 50 years of life for a top-tier state university. At another 10 for an Ivy League. Your daughter's life, my pen tapped the abacus, is only enough for a standard state college. The woman got anxious. But she's a virgin. Does that add to the price? I almost laughed. Humans are so interesting. When it comes to selling their daughter, suddenly they remember how to bargain. There is another option. I pushed the abacus aside. Sell your daughter's love for you. That deep, unwavering devotion she has. It's worth enough for an Ivy League acceptance. The couple looked at each other. The woman tugged on her husband's sleeve. Once a girl gets married, she belongs to another family anyway. As my fountain pen soaked up the crimson ink, the man stammered, so if we sell her love, will she still obey us? She'll still slave away for you like always, I said with a smile. It's just that. The contract floated up, no wind to guide it, as the last line seeped out in red ink. Addendum. Deduct 30% from the subject's morality. They pressed their fingerprints on it without even reading. The copper bell chimed the transaction was complete. As the woman walked out clutching the letter of guaranteed admission, she muttered, "We should have had a few more girls." I pulled out her life card. As I rolled it between my fingers, an image appeared in the gray mist. The woman washing clothes in the dead of winter. Such a good soul. And soon she would be. Jinx, I called to my black cat. Get the car ready. We're going to Hui Village. The dirt roads of Hui Village were so bumpy I thought my bones would shake apart. The back seat was piled high with burlap sacks tied shut. Last week's haul of filial piety, already starting to stink. How much are we taking this time? Jinx's eyes glowed green. I didn't answer. Ava's life card hung from the rear view mirror. In its gray mist, she was crouched by a well, washing clothes, her fingers red and raw from the cold. When you've been in this business long enough, you can recognize the quality of a soul at a glance. Some people come to sell their conscience, and when you cut it out, it's just a lump of rotten mud. Others pawn their love, only to pull out a heart riddled with 1,000 holes. But Ava was different. Her given name was a plea for a son, but she had renamed herself Ava. The stitches she used to mend her brother's backpack were neat and tight. The money she earned from odd jobs was hidden under a floor tile, every bill smoothed out perfectly. Take 30% of her morality, I said finally. The rest is up to her. Jinx sneered. You're getting soft. The car crunched over the gravel. In the distance, we could hear shouting and the sound of blows. Ava's mother was beating her across the back with a fire poker. Took you long enough to wash one set of clothes. If your brother's new sneakers aren't ready. The girl didn't cry. She just wiped her frostbitten hands on her apron and silently sped up. I put out my cigarette. Let's go. Time to deliver some hope. Something rustled inside one of the sacks. Jinx pawed out a gold-plated bank card that gleamed in the moonlight, the cruelest trick in the pawnshop's playbook. The pin is her birthday. I slipped the card into a red envelope. What do you think she'll buy first? Ointment for her frostbite, or a bus ticket out of here? The black cat just flicked his tail and said nothing. Ava sat by the washtub, her hunched silhouette cast against the window. The sound of high heels approached from behind. She turned to see a woman in a silk dress standing by the clothesline, a red envelope dangling from her fingertips. The woman was beautiful, so much so that even her shadow seemed fainter than anyone else's. "Ava?" The woman held out the envelope. "This is for you." Ava didn't take it. She glanced first at the main room, where her mother was mending her brother's backpack, then at the woman's high heels. The heels were so thin, yet they didn't sink into the muddy ground. "Take it." The woman stuffed the envelope into her apron pocket, knocking a tube of ointment to the ground. "The pin is your birthday." As Ava bent down to pick up the ointment, she caught a glimpse of the woman's calf through the slit of her dress. She quickly looked up, but the woman had already turned and was walking toward the village entrance. A black cat darted out from nowhere, its tail brushing against the back of her ulcerated hand. "Wait." Ava chased after her for a few steps. "Who are you?" The woman turned back, pressing a finger to her lips. The water in the well was crusted with ice. Tucked in Ava's apron pocket was half a tube of frostbite ointment, tossed to her by the barefoot doctor at the edge of the village. "Come back to me for an amputation when it rots through," he'd said. She hadn't dared to use it. She had to save it for the coldest part of winter. Useless girl. Still dawdling. Her mother splashed a basin of dirty dishwater from the window, drenching the ground by her feet. Ava scrubbed the clothes faster. As she worked, she noticed red streaks appearing in the water. Her frostbite had split open, staining her brother's white school uniform a pale pink. She stared at that pink smudge for 3 seconds and took a deep breath. It smelled of sunshine. Of course. Her brother's uniform was hung out to dry in the sunny courtyard every day, while her clothes were left to mold in the shadows behind the kitchen. "What are you crying for?" Her mother yelled again. Ava wiped her face, only then realizing she wasn't crying. At dinner, Ava squatted by the stove, sipping water. A plate of scrambled eggs sat on the table. Her brother had taken most of it, her father was nursing a cup of wine, and her mother was placing the very last piece of egg into her son's bowl. "Good for nothing," her mother snapped at her. "Using up so much soap just to wash clothes." Ava lowered her head. Her brother kicked her. "Sis, where are my sneakers?" "They're drying. I want them now." He threw his chopsticks at her. Ava put down her bowl to get the shoes. When she returned, she heard her mother's hushed voice. "Wang the butcher is offering an 80,000 bride price." Her father took a loud slurp of wine. "We'll send her over in the spring." Ava stood in the shadows. The woodshed was drafty, and moonlight streamed in through a crack in the roof tiles. Ava curled up on the straw. She heard footsteps outside the door, and her brother snuck in. "Mom sent me to see if you were dead yet." He kicked her leg and whispered, "Hey, you've been hiding money, haven't you? I saw you stuffing something into the wall." Ava didn't move. Her brother knelt and pulled her hair. "Give me $20, or I'll tell Dad you've been stealing." The straw rustled. Ava slowly sat up, the moonlight illuminating one side of her face. "Okay," she said. Her brother reached out his hand smugly, only to hear a soft click. Ava had pulled a small iron box from a crack in the wall and opened it right in front of him. Inside were stacks of small bills, and on top of them all, a gold-plated bank card. "Want it?" she asked softly. Her brother's eyes lit up, and he lunged for it. Ava suddenly grabbed his wrist, her nails digging into his pulse point. "Touch my things again, and I'll carve the story of how you faked your grades onto the big tree at the village entrance." Her brother froze. He noticed for the first time that his sister's eyes seemed to glow in the dark. In the shadows, the black cat, Jinx, flicked his tail. "The effects of taking 30% of her morality," I chuckled, stroking her life card, "are kicking in faster than expected." In the gray mist, Ava was hiding the bank card back in the wall. At the bottom of the iron box lay a piece of paper, an acceptance letter to the county high school, torn to pieces and taped back together, the corners still bearing the print of a shoe. Such a good soul. Not for much longer. Before dawn, Ava was kicked awake again. Her mother stood at the woodshed door, her trouser legs smudged with soot. "Get your ass up." She kicked Ava in the back. "Your brother starts school today, and his clothes are still damp." Ava said nothing, rubbing her frozen fingers together. The ice by the well was thicker now. As she drew water, She heard her brother's voice from inside. I want to wear my new sneakers. You'll wear them, you'll wear them. Her mother's voice suddenly softened. Ava, dry your brother's shoes by the fire. Ava brought the school uniform inside. The charcoal brazier was burning brightly, and her brother sat beside it, munching on a brown sugar bun. Took you long enough. Her mother snatched the uniform. Why didn't you scrub this collar? I did. Bullshit. Her mother threw the uniform in her face. You think I'm blind? The damp cloth slapped against her cheek. Ava blinked and saw her brother smirking. Crumbs stuck to the corner of his mouth. The kettle on the stove began to whistle. Her mother turned to get it, still cursing. Raising you is worse than raising a donkey. Ava pulled the uniform off her face. She stared at the back of her mother's head, at the coin-sized scar where her father had hit her with an ashtray last year when he was drunk. The white steam from the kettle blurred her vision. Splash. A basin of ice-cold water, along with the damp clothes, drenched her mother's back. The world went silent for 2 seconds. Her mother slowly turned around, her mouth agape, the brown sugar bun falling to the floor. Her brother's smirk froze in his throat, turning into a strange squawk. Ava looked down at her own hands. Her frostbite had split open, blood snaking between the cracks, but her fingertips were hot, as if she had just touched the charcoal brazier. You, her mother's voice trembled. You're rebelling. The fire poker swung toward her, but Ava didn't dodge. Thwack. The stick hit her body with a familiar, dull thud. But this time, she heard a laugh escape her own lips. It was quiet, but loud enough to make her mother freeze. What are you laughing at? Her mother shrieked. Huh. What's so funny? The second blow landed on her thigh. Ava swayed and knocked over the washtub. Dirty water washed over her brother's new sneakers, and he jumped up. My shoes. Ava slowly straightened her back. She looked at her mother's contorted face, her brother's reddening neck, and the puddle of soapy water on the floor. In it, she could see the reflection of her own split lip. So this is what rebellion felt like. Like pressing a frozen hand into hot coals. It hurt, but it was exhilarating. The black cat, Jinx, sat on the windowsill, his green eyes glowing in the morning mist. I stroked the life card. In the gray fog, the meter on Ava's morality was dropping 68%, 65%, 63%. We only took 30%, Jinx said, licking his paws. Why does she seem like a completely different person? I chuckled softly. Humans think of morality as an iron chain, but really, it's just a paper-thin screen. Outside, her mother was grabbing Ava's hair and dragging her toward the well. If you don't get this clean, you're not eating today. Ava didn't struggle, but she didn't kneel either. Her back was ramrod straight, her frostbitten fingers gripping the edge of the well. Such a beautiful soul. And now it was beginning to rot. The woodshed smelled faintly of mildew. Ava was curled up in a pile of straw. It had been 3 days. Her mother hadn't mentioned the bride price from Wong the butcher again. That basin of water she'd thrown seemed to have temporarily extinguished the idea of selling her. Click. The window rattled softly, and a gold-plated card slid through, catching the cold moonlight. Ava didn't move. The pin is your birthday. The voice came from the shadows. She looked up and saw a woman in a dark green silk dress leaning against the doorframe, a cigarette twirling between her fingers. The shopkeeper? Ava's voice was raw. The woman smiled. Your parents didn't hesitate when they sold your love for them. She gestured toward the bank card with her cigarette. There's enough in there to buy out your whole family. Ava stared at the card. Its surface reflected her own swollen lip, and behind her, the wall where her brother was peeking through a crack in the window, his eyes wide as saucers. Want it? The shopkeeper asked, exhaling a puff of smoke. Trade the rest of your morality for it. Ava snatched the card. Almost simultaneously, her brother burst through the door. Give it to me. Slap. The sound of the backhand was as crisp as splitting firewood. Her brother stumbled back, blood from his nose splattering onto the bank card. Ava looked down at her hand. Her palm was tingling. You hit me? He stammered, covering his face in disbelief. Dad. Mom. Sis stole money and she's hitting me. When her mother rushed in, Ava was using the corner of her shirt to wipe the blood off the card. You little beast. Her mother grabbed a handful of her hair. You dare touch your brother? Through the searing pain on her scalp, Ava saw the shopkeeper still standing in the same spot, the jade pendant on her dress swaying gently. "It's mine," Ava said suddenly. 2 words, and the room fell silent. Her mother's grip loosened. For the first time, she truly looked at this daughter. Ava's eyes were terrifyingly dark, and that strange smile was still playing on her lips. "What's yours or mine?" Her mother's voice was shaky. "All the money in this family is the $80,000 bride price from Wong the butcher," Ava said, slowly prying her mother's fingers away, "is the price for selling me." She held up the bank card. "This is the price for buying my life back." Her brother ran toward the main room. "Dad, Dad." Jinx leaped onto a rafter, his tail sweeping through a spider web. "Down to 62% morality," he muttered. "She plays rough." I flicked the ash from my cigarette. The gray mist on the life card was churning violently. Ava was kicking her brother to the ground, her mother was screaming curses, and her father was storming in, still pulling up his pants. What a scene. Humans always think of morality as a set of shackles, but really, it's just a paper screen. Once you poke a hole in it, all that's left inside is a wild beast. "Should we intervene?" Jinx asked. I smiled softly. "Let's wait a little longer." Outside the window, Ava had already backed up to the well. The belt her father was swinging split the water bucket, and her back was pressed against the winch. Such a good soul. And now, the fight to the death was beginning. The ice shards on the edge of the well dug into the soles of Ava's feet. The belt in her father's hand hung in midair, its brass buckle glinting coldly. Her mother was still clutching a lock of her hair, and her brother's nosebleed dripped onto the snow like scattered red berries. "Hand over the card." Her father's voice was tight. "That's my money." Ava didn't move. The edge of the bank card cut into her palm. Her mother let go and took half a step back. "Ava," she cooed, her voice suddenly soft, like when she used to coax her brother to take his medicine. "How about Mom makes you some brown sugar soup?" Ava looked at her mother's hands. The same hands that had been choking her just moments ago were now making a gesture of maternal love. The belt whipped down suddenly. Ava sidestepped. As her father stumbled forward, she grabbed her mother's collar. Thump. Her mother fell backward into a snowdrift. Snowflakes clung to her mother's eyelashes, and she blinked like a dazed hen. Her brother forgot to wipe his nosebleed, and the belt in her father's hand clattered to the ground. "Are you crazy?" Her mother's voice trembled. Ava bent down and picked up the belt. The brass buckle was still smeared with her blood. "I've been crazy for a long time." Her brother whispered, "Sis, you seem different." Ava turned to look at him. A strange shape bulged from his sleeve, the worn handle of a knife, wrapped in cloth. It was the knife their father used to kill stray dogs last year. Jinx was sharpening his claws on the eaves of the roof. 61%, 60%, he muttered, watching the numbers tick down on the life card, dropping faster than the stock market. I flicked my ash away. Ava was folding the belt in half, the end with the brass buckle dangling over the snow. Her mother was still sitting there, the snow soaking through her cotton pants, but no one moved to help her up. How interesting. Humans always compare family ties to a great tree, but really, it's nothing more than a thorny thicket. The more you struggle, the deeper the thorns dig in. "Should we step in?" Jinx asked. I shook my head. Let her cut her own way out. Suddenly, footsteps came from beyond the courtyard wall. The village chief appeared at the gate, holding a lantern. What's all this noise in the middle of the night? In the halo of light, Ava saw her brother quickly hide the knife back up his sleeve and force a docile smile. "Uncle, my sister's having one of her fits." Such a good actor. Now it was Ava's turn to smile. The lantern light cast a warm yellow glow on the snow. The village chief squinted, his eyes scanning the yard. The well platform was cracked, and the mother was sitting in a snowdrift with soaked cotton pants. "What's the commotion?" He poked the brother with his lantern pole. "Bullying your sister again?" The brother immediately flinched, hiding his sleeve behind his back. "No." Ava coughed twice, wiped her mouth with her fingers, and showed the bloodstain to the village chief. "Uncle, I've been throwing up all night." The chief frowned. He knew this girl. When they collected the agricultural tax last year, her family's accounts were the only ones that were perfectly clear. "Old you." The lantern light shone directly in the father's face. Your daughter's this sick and you're still hitting her? Secretary Wang is coming for an inspection tomorrow. If she dies, are you going to take the blame? The father's Adam's apple bobbed. He kicked the washtub. Go to bed. In the woodshed, Ava pulled the iron box from the crack in the wall. $327.60, a packet of laxative powder from the county pharmacy, and a half-completed work permit. The village chief had given her a long look when he stamped it, but didn't ask why an 18-year-old girl was planning to go to the city alone. The bank card was still there. She took out $200 bills and carefully sprinkled the powder over the chairman's portrait. When she put the money back in the box, she intentionally left a corner sticking out. A shadow flickered past the crack in the window. Ava lay back on the straw and pretended to be asleep. Jinx perched on a rafter, flicking his tail. Crude, he sniffed. You think the kid will fall for it? I stroked the life card. In the gray mist, the brother was prying open the iron box. He grabbed the bank card first, then hesitated and put it back, taking only the 2 doctored bills. Not entirely stupid. When humans get greedy, they're worse than dogs, I chuckled. Jinx's ears suddenly perked up. A new scene appeared in the mist. The brother snuck into the kitchen, stuffed the money under the steamer basket, paused, and then took it out again. The next morning, when his mother heated up the buns, the powder would contaminate the whole family's breakfast. Should we warn her? I flicked the cat's ear. Since when did you become a saint? Just as dawn broke, Ava heard her brother wailing. My stomach hurts. I have to go. Her mother panicked and knocked over the chamber pot. Her father, pulling on his pants, yelled, Hold it in. You have a practice exam today. As the outhouse door slammed shut, Ava was airing out the quilts. Her brother ran out with yellow liquid dripping down his pant leg, his mother chasing behind him, wiping as they went, all the way to the village entrance. A few kids on their way to school pointed and jeered. Leo pooped his pants. Ava held the quilt, watching her brother limp toward the school. A piece of paper fell out of his backpack and the wind blew it to her feet. A math practice test, the 88 he'd written and changed back to A. She stepped on the test paper and wiped the frostbite ointment from her hands. The kerosene lamp cast her parents' silhouettes on the window. Wang the butcher raised his offer to 100,000, her mother whispered. He's making the down payment the day after tomorrow. Her father took a swig of wine. The girl's been acting strange lately. Perfect. Marry her off and let her husband deal with her. She must have been the one who poisoned him today. Ava stood outside the window, clutching her brother's dropped test. As the night wind tore their conversation to pieces, she heard a soft meow behind her. A black cat sat on the wall, its green eyes like 2 small lanterns. Snow began to fall after midnight. Ava crouched under the eaves of the woodshed, watching the snowflakes settle on her brother's test paper. The 58, which had been written over and over, slowly blurred. From inside the house came the sounds of rummaging. She gently pushed open a crack in the window. Her brother was on his hands and knees, digging through her pillow. The bank card was in a hidden pocket, close to her skin, insulated by the coarse fabric. She coughed suddenly. Her brother jumped in fright. Ava pushed the door open and walked in. Sis. I was looking for an eraser. The iron box was open, containing only the laxative powder and the work permit. As Ava walked slowly closer, her brother shoved past her and ran for the door. Click. The bolt slid into place by itself. Her brother turned to see Ava dangling a piece of iron wire. You learned how to pick locks last year when you were stealing eggs. He turned to yell, but Ava clamped a hand over his mouth. Her fingers were as cold as iron pliers, and his snot and tears smeared all over her hand. Shoo, she whispered in his ear. You steal money, I tell Dad. He bit the base of her thumb. Ava let go, and her brother scrambled for the door bolt. She grabbed him by the collar and threw him backward. He crashed into the rice crock with a thud, and the iron box clattered over, empty. Where's the money? Ava asked. His eyes darted toward the stove bed. Jinx lay on the windowsill, licking his paws. 58% morality, he noted, looking at the life card. She's being quite methodical about this. I chuckled softly. In the gray mist, Ava was pinning her brother's hand to the edge of the stove bed, bending one of his index fingers back at an impossible angle. Was it this finger that touched the money? Her voice was very quiet. Let's just break it. Sis, I was wrong. Crack. The sound of a dislocating joint mingled with a piercing scream. When their parents burst in, Ava was sitting on the edge of the stove bed, counting money. 28 red bills were laid out in a neat row. With each one she counted, she glanced at her brother. He was curled in a corner, cradling his hand, his fingers swollen like a carrot. The cleaver in her father's hand clattered to the floor. What did you do to your brother? Ava flicked the last bill open. Counting money. She looked up. Isn't this what you taught me? Keep a clear account even with family. The light from the snow shone through the window, illuminating a bruise on her cheek, from where her father had whipped her with his belt 3 days ago. Now she was smiling. Her father grabbed the wooden bar used to bolt the door. Ava didn't flinch. She pulled the work permit from under the bills. The village chief already stamped this. She shook the paper. I'm going to the city tomorrow. Her mother lunged for the stove bed. Give me back the money. Fine. Let Leo come and get it himself. A meow came from outside. The black cat sat in the snow, its green eyes fixed on the cleaver by her father's feet. When the door bar came crashing down, Ava didn't dodge. The wood grazed her ear and slammed onto the floor. Her father was panting, the reek of alcohol blasting her in the face. You've gone too far. The brass buckle of his belt sliced through the air. The first lash struck her body and Ava swayed. As the second one came for her knees, she suddenly raised her hand. Smack. She caught the belt. Her father's eyes widened. This daughter, who had never fought back, now had a grip like an iron vice. Medical fees, $200. Her father was stunned. What? Lost wages, $3,000. She pried his fingers open, pulling the belt from his grasp inch by inch. And for pain and suffering, the belt suddenly whipped in the other direction. Whack! The brass buckle split open a gash on her father's face. He stumbled back, touching the warm blood, his expression one of pure horror. Ava flicked the belt. Now you owe me $3,240. Her mother screamed and lunged at her, scratching at her face. Ava sidestepped. Her brother cowered by the stove bed, cradling his swollen finger and trembling. Old you! Her mother's voice was a piercing shriek. Go get Wang the butcher. Have him drag her away right now. Her father was still in a daze, his face half covered in blood. Ava folded the belt in half. The end with the buckle dangled, gently tapping her brother's shoe print on the floor. Fine, she nodded. I'll marry him. The whole family froze. Ava bent down, picked up the work permit, and smoothed it out. First, let's settle the bill. Jinx yawned on the rafter. 55%. He flicked the life card with his paw. It's dropping faster than the snow is melting. I stroked my pipe. In the gray mist, her mother was rummaging through chests and cabinets for money. Of course, she wouldn't find any. Every cent Ava had saved over the years had been converted into that gold-plated bank card, which was now pressed against her chest, warm. Should we intervene? Jinx asked. I smiled softly. Look at her eyes. The gray mist focused on Ava's pupils. There was no fear, no anger, only a cold, calculating resolve. Such a beautiful transformation. Her mother slipped out in the middle of the night. Leaning against the woodshed window, Ava mentally catalogued what her mother had hidden in her coat. A packet of rat poison, 2 red strings, and the receipt for the deposit Wang the butcher had given them when he first came to see her. From outside the courtyard wall, she heard hushed voices. The girl's got a mean streak. We'll need more money. Once he's had her, she'll learn to be obedient. The light from the snow illuminated Ava's hand. With her brother's pencil, she drew a line on the wall, 3,240, the debt her father owed. Beneath it, she added another line in small letters. Selling price, 100,000 firm. Before dawn, Wang the butcher arrived. He stood in the main room, pinching a piece of red paper, his thick finger pointing to a blank space. Put your thumbprint here. Ava didn't move. Her mother pushed her from behind. Useless girl, didn't you agree yesterday? Ava looked down at the marriage contract. On the coarse paper, the words of her own free will were scrawled crookedly. Underneath, someone had drawn a small turtle, her brother's handwriting. Wang the butcher grinned. Your brother said you liked turtles. She reached out and took the contract. Ava suddenly smiled. Jinx poked his head out from a rafter. 54%, 53%. My fingertips tapped lightly against my pipe. In the gray mist, Ava's smile was like a thin razor blade. Her mother wrung her hands and took half a step back. Her father squatted on the doorstep, smoking in silence. I'll marry him, Ava said. Her mother let out a long sigh of relief and hurried to get the ink pad. But Ava folded the contract and tucked it into a hidden pocket. After the deed is transferred. What deed? Wang the butcher was confused. Ava pointed to the rafters. This house was left to me by my grandfather. It needs to be transferred to my brother first. She looked at her parents. Right? Her father looked up. The snow had stopped, and the courtyard was eerily silent. Ava crouched by the well, holding the iron box. Her brother was peeking through the window. Sis, are you really going to marry him? Do you want me to? Wang the butcher's last wife hanged herself. Ava watched the ripples in the water. The day you stole my money, she asked softly. Were you hiding a knife? Her brother's face went pale. While an argument erupted in the main room, Ava was mending the blue cloth shirt. We can't touch the house. Leo needs it to get married. Wang the butcher's eyes glittered again. Then add another 50,000 to the bride price. Useless girl, what are you doing? Ava was standing before the ancestral altar, holding the marriage contract, and bringing it close to the ever-burning lamp in front of the tablets. The flame shot up, instantly charring and curling the corner of the paper. Splash! A basin of well water doused the flame, spattering ash on the ancestral tablets. Her father raised a stool to smash it, but Ava shook open the sopping wet contract. Let's put our thumbprints on it. The blood-red words of her own free will were blurred and running, like a tear-streaked face. Wang the butcher looked from Ava to her parents, then grabbed his hat and left. Bad luck. Her mother collapsed to the floor, pointing a trembling finger at Ava. Ava pressed the soaked contract onto the altar table and turned to leave. Behind her, she heard her father's roar. We'll tie her up and drag her there if we have to. Jinx sat on the roof of the woodshed, a wisp of green smoke curling from the tip of his tail. 52%. He tilted his head. I stroked the life card. In the gray mist, the needle Ava was using to mend the shirt appeared. Humans always think that if you burn a contract, it doesn't count, I chuckled. Outside the window, her mother was piecing the fragments of the contract back together, while her brother secretly drew another turtle on it. Such a perfect setup. Now it was their turn to walk into the trap. Wang the butcher returned, this time with 4 of his cousins. They squatted by the courtyard gate, smoking. Her mother dug a red jacket out from the bottom of a chest, the collar still stained with ash from the ancestral worship ceremony 2 years ago. Put this on. She threw it at Ava. And wipe that miserable look off your face. Ava bent down and picked up the jacket. I'll marry him, she said softly. Her mother, stunned for a moment, broke into a wide smile and yelled to the men outside. She's agreed. In the main room, the down payment was piled high on the table. 10 stacks of bills, the bank wrappers still intact. Her father's rough fingers stroked them over and over, as if caressing a woman's thigh. Her brother leaned over the table, pointing at one of the legs. Dad, my exam admission ticket. Ava squatted by the stove, feeding the fire, her face calm in the flickering light. That admission ticket was currently propping up the wobbly table leg, the ink of Leo already smudged. What's the hurry? Her mother slapped her brother's hand away. Once you're in college, you think you'll be short one piece of paper? Ava picked up the kettle, the steam obscuring her expression. Jinx poked his head out from a rafter. 50%, the breaking point. My fingertips tapped my pipe. In the gray mist, Ava was dripping something into the teapot, a clear liquid, bought from the county pharmacy. Should we warn them? Jinx asked. I smiled softly. Look at the girl's hand. As Ava poured the tea, you could see a piece of flesh missing from her left pinky finger, from where her brother's dog had bitten her last year. Now her thumb was rubbing that old scar. Serve the tea. Her mother pushed her. The first cup went to Wang the butcher, who groped her wrist as he took it. The second went to her father, who downed it in one gulp before going back to counting the money. When it was her mother's turn, a loud crash came from outside. The table had collapsed. Her brother's admission ticket was soaked in tea. My ticket. My college admission. He wailed like a pig being slaughtered. His mother scrambled to grab it, but her legs suddenly gave out, and she fell face first into the pile of money. Wang the butcher clutched his stomach and stood up, only to drop to his knees again with a thud. Her father was the first to react, grabbing a stool to attack. He froze mid-swing, a dark stain slowly spreading down his pant leg. Ava stood up, her red jacket like a ball of fire. She looked at the men writhing on the floor and said softly, "The drug lasts for 3 hours." She turned, picked up her pre-packed cloth bag. "That's enough time for me to walk to the county seat." Her brother grabbed her leg. Sis, I feel sick." Ava pried his fingers off and poured the last half cup of tea into his mouth. "Now you're all the same." Jinx leaped onto my shoulder. "Was that your poison?" I shook my head and showed him the scene in the gray mist. Ava at the pharmacy counter, counting out small bills with her frostbitten hands. "I want the one that hurts the most but won't kill them." Such a clever girl. She knew that destroying the soul was better than killing the body. The footprints in the snow led to the edge of the village, and then vanished. Ava crouched in an abandoned earth god temple, counting her money for the 10th time, 30,000 in cash, the bank card and the work permit, now stained with tea. The wind howled outside the temple. Having regrets? Ava didn't turn around when the voice came from behind her. She knew who it was, the hem of a dark green silk dress brushing against the altar, the crisp clink of a silver pipe against an incense burner, and that faint, ever-present scent of sandalwood and decay. The shopkeeper's fingers rested on her shoulder. "Take a look at the future you gave up." A white light flooded Ava's vision. She saw herself in that red jacket, being dragged into a back room by Wang the butcher. A hemp rope, the kind used for hanging, was coiled on the headboard. She saw herself miscarry at 5 months pregnant, her mother counting the compensation money and saying, "Finally got a return on our investment." Finally, she saw herself dying in the dead of winter, barefoot and curled up beside a pile of firewood. "We should have had more daughters to sell. 100,000 each is better than raising pigs." The vision snapped off. Ava's hands were covered in ash from the incense burner. The black cat, Jinx, sat on a beam, licking his paw. 49%. She's a stubborn one. I tapped the ash from my pipe. Ava stood up and pulled the marriage contract from her hidden pocket. The word voluntary on the red paper was a blurry mess, but Wang the butcher's thumbprint was still clear. "Burn it," she said, her voice hoarse. I chuckled. "You can burn the contract, but can you burn away your fate?" The flame of the ever-burning lamp flared, and the contract turned to ash in Ava's hand. But from within the cinders, a corner of yellow paper emerged. Hell money. The denomination was $1 billion, with Wang the butcher's smiling face printed on the front. The sounds of a crowd grew louder outside, the light of torches closing in on the temple. "Search. That damn girl couldn't have gotten far." Her father's voice was still strained with stomach cramps. Ava clutched the hell money and suddenly laughed. A laugh so jarring it seemed to crack the clay statue of the earth god. The light of the torches was already at the temple door. Ava stuffed the hell money back into her pocket, her thumb brushing against Wang the butcher's smiling face. The paper was ice cold. "Leave through the back window," the shopkeeper's voice floated in the darkness. "Or stay and collect your debts." Ava didn't move. She looked at her hands, split open by frostbite. Then she pulled a piece of paper from her coat. "Her father's IOU. 3,240, she said. "The interest is 10 times that." Jinx's tail shot straight up. 48%. She's got some nerve. The debt collectors arrived. 3 men in sunglasses blocked the courtyard gate. The leader tapped the IOU with a steel pipe. "Old you with interest, you owe 87,000. Her father clutched his stomach. "I never borrowed." Clang. The steel pipe smashed the water crock. "It's in black and white." Her mother pointed at Ava. "She'll pay. She has money." The debt collector turned, the snow's glare reflecting off his sunglasses. "That your daughter?" Ava stood by the well. She looked up, her voice quiet. "It's only right for a child to pay a parent's debt." The steel pipe pointed at her brother. "Then we'll sell the son to cover it." The black cat flicked its tail from its perch in the jujube tree. "TSK professionals." I stroked the life card. In the gray mist, Ava was counting money with her frostbitten hands. $300 bills, given to the toughest gangster in town. The interest calculation is wrong, I chuckled. She should have asked for 120,000. Jinx tilted his head. Why? His son is worth that much. In the mist, her brother was secretly hiding a kitchen knife in his cotton jacket, along with the deposit receipt from Wong the butcher. In the main room, the debt collector slapped the IOU on the table. 3 days. If you don't pay, we take the house. Her father dropped to his knees, grabbing Ava's pant leg. Ava, Dad was wrong. Ava looked down at him. This man who had once whipped her with a belt. Who does the house belong to? She asked suddenly. Her father froze. To your brother, of course. Ava snatched the IOU and slapped it across her brother's face. It belongs to you? Her brother suddenly lunged. His jacket tore open, and a kitchen knife flashed. Thwack. The blade sank deep into the tabletop, missing Ava's fingers by an inch. The debt collector immediately pressed his steel pipe against the brother's throat. We'll take him as payment. Perfect. The snow started falling again. Ava stood at the gate, watching the debt collectors beat her brother in the snow. Her father was on his knees, begging, while her mother tore at her own hair like a madwoman. What a show! She pulled out the hell money. Wong the butcher's smiling face was now stained red. Are you ready to make a deal with me now? The shopkeeper's voice came from behind her. The snow stopped, and the entire village crowded outside the Yu family's courtyard to watch. Ava stood by the woodpile, holding her brother's school bag. The name Leo was scrawled on the corners of the textbooks. Sis. Her brother's voice was hoarse, blood from the beating still crusted on his lips. Those are my books. Ava ignored him. She pulled the hell money from her coat and gently tucked it inside a math textbook. I traded his future for money. 30,000. A match flared, and the flame licked at the plastic cover of an SAT prep book. Jinx, perched on the wall, twitched his tail nervously. 47%. We're at the breaking point. My fingertips tapped my pipe. In the gray mist, Ava's pupils reflected the fire, like 2 melting lanterns of ice. It's not enough, I murmured. The fire roared to life, devouring her brother's notebooks. A test paper with a forged 88 curled and blackened, the original 58 appearing in the ashes. A few snickers rose from the crowd. My college chances. Her brother broke free from his mother and, with reddened eyes, threw himself at the fire. Ava stuck out her foot and tripped him. He face planted in the snow. The fire burned higher. Ava looked at her own shadow. It was twisted and elongated, like a new creature shedding its skin. The heat melted the frost on her eyelashes, but her eyes were too dry for a single tear. Ava, the village chief called out, that's about enough. Ava pulled a burning stick from the fire and used it to light the last English textbook. Fine. She turned and pointed at her father. First, pay back the 87,000 you owe me. Ava looked back. From the heart of the flames, a black lacquered door materialized, its bronze knockers shaped like snarling beasts. It was the entrance to the underworld pawn shop. A new contract slowly drifted out from the crack, written in crimson ink. Pawn item. The Yu family's entire luck and fortune. In exchange for Ava's freedom. Her mother dropped to her knees. Mom was wrong, I'll kowtow to you. Ava looked at her mother's graying hair. She remembered that winter when her mother pressed a cigarette butt onto the back of her hand and said, Does it burn? Endure it. The cat leaped onto my shoulder. Will she sign? I watched Ava's hand in the gray mist. The open sores of her frostbite were smeared with blood as it slowly reached for the contract in the fire. Wait. Let her choose. In the fire, the crimson words on the contract burned brighter and brighter. Ava's hand hovered over the flames, the open sores on her frostbitten skin stinging from the heat. Her mother was still kowtowing. Ava, her father began, his voice raspy. I admit I was wrong. His right hand was behind his back, the sleeve hiding a small cleaver, identical to the one her brother had hidden. Ava slowly pulled her hand back and took out the IOU. Go on. Kill me. Jinx's tail fluffed up like a feather duster. 46%. She's doing this on purpose. The cleaver clattered to the ground. He squatted down, covering his face. We raised you, so you had the right to devour me whole? Ava cut him off, tapping the IOU lightly against his cheek. 3,240, with interest, comes to 87,000. Is that enough for the cost of raising me? Her mother lunged, scratching at her face. Ungrateful wretch. Ava sidestepped, and her mother's hand caught her collar, ripping it open. The bank card hidden inside fell into the snow. Her brother's eyes immediately lit up. Sis, he crawled over on his knees. I was wrong. But his left hand was secretly reaching for the card. Ava stepped on his fingers. Wrong about what? He writhed in pain, his right hand pulling a small knife from his coat, a betrothal gift from Wong the butcher, its handle still tied with a red silk ribbon. Wrong about, he lunged at her ankle. Not killing you sooner. The tip of the blade was an inch from her skin when he suddenly froze. He saw Ava pull a burning log from the fire, and the flames made it look as if she had two shadows. The burning log hovered before her brother's eyes. Ava's foot was still pressing on the hand he'd used to try and steal the bank card, the pressure just enough. His knife was frozen in midair, the red silk tassel singed by a spark. Sis, I was really wrong. Ava stared at him. She had looked at this face for 17 years, from the infant drinking the rice water she'd stolen for him, to the boy now pointing a knife at her. The firelight reflected her own image in his pupils, twisted into the shape of a demon. She lifted her foot and lowered the burning log. Get out! He scrambled away, hiding behind his parents, the knife clattering to the ground. Jinx leaped onto my shoulder. 45%. So ruthless. I watched Ava in the gray mist. She bent down, picked up the bank card, wiped it twice in the snow, and turned toward the pawnshop door that had appeared in the fire. She's not signing the contract? Jinx tilted his head. I smiled. She already has. Ava's shadow, cast on the courtyard wall by the firelight, flickered and began to split in two. One part remained where she stood, the other stepped toward the darkness. Ava. I stood at the pawnshop door and called to her. The copper bells under the eaves chimed softly. She looked back one last time at her burning home, at her brother sitting in the snow, her mother holding her head and wailing, and her father secretly trying to pick up the dropped IOU. The ash from the burning textbooks swirled in the wind, drifting past her shoulders. Come, I said, holding out my hand. Ava's shadow split completely. One followed me into the pawnshop. The other remained by the fire, silently watching the people who were once her family. The copper bell of the underworld pawnshop chimed. Ava sat behind the black ebony counter, the silk of her dress shimmering with a cold light. A faint brown scar was just visible through the slit. A new customer pushed the door open, bringing with him the smell of cheap cigarettes. The man wrung his hands while the woman's eyes were glued to the gold on the curio shelves. We want to pawn something. The man slapped a piece of paper down. A 58 in math, the grade clumsily altered to an. The tip of Ava's silver tweezers lifted the corner of the paper. This shop doesn't accept trash. My daughter. The woman rushed to the glass display case, her knuckles rapping against the bulletproof glass. Will sell my daughter's lifespan. Jinx leaped onto the counter, his tail sweeping across the book of life and death. The cycle continues, he murmured. I leaned against the second floor railing, watching Ava open the ledger. Her nails were well kept now, smooth and shiny, though the tip of her pinky finger was still missing. 16 years old, with 62 years of life left. Her crimson pen tapped the girl's name. How much are you looking to trade? All of it. The man blurted out, but withered under his wife's glare. Just enough to get our son into a good university. The abacus beads clicked. 50 years of life for a top-tier state university. At another 10 for an Ivy League. Ava pushed the abacus forward. Your daughter's life, the tip of her pen paused, is only enough for a standard state college. But she's a virgin. The woman hissed. Does that add to the price? Ava smiled. She slowly rolled up the sleeve of her dress, revealing a faint, circular scar on her wrist. There is another option. She pulled out a new contract. Sell her love for you. That deep, unwavering devotion she has. It's worth enough for an Ivy League acceptance. The couple exchanged a look. The woman tugged her husband's sleeve. Once a girl gets married, she belongs to another family anyway. As the fountain pen filled with crimson ink, the man stammered, So, if we sell her love, will she still obey us? She'll still slave away for you like always, Ava said with a smile. It's just that. The parchment floated up on its own, and the last line seeped out in blood-red ink. Addendum. Deduct 20 years from the lifespans of the subject's parents. They pressed their thumbprints on it without even reading. The copper bell chimed, the transaction complete. As the woman walked out clutching the letter of guaranteed admission, she muttered, "We should have had a few more girls." Ava stroked the new girl's life card, an image of her washing clothes in the winter cold appearing in the mist. Such a clean soul, she thought. "Excuse me," she called out to the couple. "I forgot to ask." This time, her finger tapped the contract. "How about you sell me your lives?" After the shop closed for the night, Jinx hopped onto the counter, the tip of his tail brushing the back of Ava's hand. "Not going to treat that wound." He eyed the rope burn on her wrist. "The master has an ointment. 3 applications and it'll be gone." Ava's fingers lingered on the scar for a moment. "It keeps me sharp," she said. Snow was falling outside. She stood up and walked to the glass display case, where 2 new items had been added. The father's filial piety, a wad of what looked like moldy cotton, sealed in a glass bottle. The mother's love, a cloudy, insect-like mass, encased in amber. Jinx pawed at the glass bottle. "It's growing mold." It was always fake. From the second floor came the soft tapping of a silver pipe against the railing. I leaned in the shadows, watching Ava take inventory of the day's acquisitions. The new couple's greed, the old couple's regret, and the pocked love of that young girl. It sat in a crystal goblet like a drop of blood on the verge of hardening. "You changed my contract," I said, exhaling a puff of smoke. Ava looked up. "I only added a clause. Deducting 20 years from the parents' lives? A fair trade. They sell 1 year of their daughter's life, they lose 20 of their own." The black cat's ears perked up. On the counter, new words were slowly forming on the contract. Penalty for breach. Retribution from the child. Ava smiled. The copper bell chimed, though there was no wind, and footsteps were heard outside the door. It was the girl, clutching her brother's textbooks, pacing back and forth in front of the pawnshop. The end.